I've been in this store now since 1950. Came in June. It was put in 46, and had 9 owners in it from 46 to 50. And the boys around the block, they took bets on how long I was going to be here, which I've been here 45 years come summer. So I've seen a lot of you young folks come through from Benton High School, still doing business with them today, getting ready for the proms. Well, of course, town was the place where you gathered. Today it's in the malls, you know, and but they used to come to town, park on the square, and a lot of people wouldn't even leave the cars on Saturday. They'd just leave them parked in one place and walk home for lunch and walk back, so they'd have that parking place and circle the block. Well, you had, of course, Parker Drug Store and Bush Drug Store, 2 Bush Drug Stores during the war years, and then Smith Caldwell, and all of them had fountains and ice cream and sodas to drink, you know. And so that was kind of the place where you gathered to see people. Smith Caldwell and Bush Drug Store were particularly busy at their lunch fountains on noontime let out of the kids. They'd run up here, of course, it's just a couple of blocks, eat a quick sandwich or a bowl of chili, and it was nice to see them come in, all the excitement. And during the time that you guys were in school, I sold quite a few things to the particular athletic department. I sold their jackets and their sweaters and their tennis shoes and their football shoes. And of course, when Tom Hardin stepped up to the high school coach, our program really developed into a good program for a number of years. We've got some of the best fans here in Benton that you can find. They're willing to support a good program. Harris Shoes came in about the same time. Sherman Shoes came in along about 50 or 51. Harris was manager, and then he bought the store, and he stayed in business up to about, maybe 6, 8 years ago. We always enjoyed him. And Lonnie Todd's family shoe store was down on the other side of the street. And had Jay's department store. Jay Koppel was well liked merchant of years past. And we had West department stores around where Cleo's is now. We don't have any department stores now except Jingles. And we've got one shoe store downtown now. But shoes, we miss all those extra little businesses that supplied certain things for people. Of course, we had the Benton Courier used to be in just a block away. And Ms. White used to come down when there's a weekly paper, she'd come down every Monday to want that ad for Wednesday, you know. And sometime I'd buy it and sometime I wouldn't, but I bought more of them because she was regular than I would have otherwise. And the Wednesday paper was a big deal.
It was, yeah.
And the parking meters came about during George Trout's mayor tenure. One reason because he sold them. He was a parking meter salesman. Right, yeah, and his wife sold them after, Lucille sold them after George died. They was made in Harrison, Arkansas, that meter was. And of course, it was designed to control the parking, and keep people from parking all day, like I'd mentioned earlier about the Saturday stand, you know. The customer couldn't get to you because the people would park all day. So the parking meter had its place. And I kind of wish we had that much traffic where we needed them today, you know. Because I never did have dental appointments. All the dentists were upstairs at one time or another. Dr. Sawyer and Dr. Hayes and Hensley and Gip Bell. And when I'd have a toothache, well, I'd just call one of them up, and then I'd say, when you get a free time, well, I'll come up and let you fix it. I never bothered with appointments back. And I'd go whichever one was available, you know. But those days, this whole building was full upstairs for a long time in the 50s and 60s. And then it got empty. Today it's full again, thank goodness.
Tommie, when I think about, I guess the years when I was in high school, I was going to tell you a minute ago, from like 62 to the spring of 65, you know, when we were in high school. And when you think back about all the people that, you know, that you knew, adults, whatever, you're one of the ones that I think about. because of your friendliness, you know, and you were outgoing, and I don't know, you just made us all feel good. You know, you had to fuss at us, I'm sure, from time to time, but that's one thing that I remember of all the people. You know, you're one of the ones that stands out. Teachers, everything. And I think probably a lot of people feel that like that. So I appreciated that. I really did.
That's why I look at this group, 64, 65, 66, 67, was a good group of people. Good kid. You come out there and it seemed like there'd be maybe 40 or 50 together, but you were kind of connected.
Yeah.
If as you crowded in front of the Dairy Queen, I'd get on the PA and says, "Okay, move," and y'all would move. Well, in 69 and 70, I would do the same thing, and I didn't get a reaction. They were more like, you know.
Whatever.
Yeah. But I've had many times I've had people call and say, "Tommy, we can't get in the Dairy Queen. What happened?" I said, "These kids are out here. They're just having a good time." It looked like I was snowed under, and really we were selling Cokes at 15 and 25 cents. I think milkshakes were 25 cents and 30 for a malt. Hamburgers were 25 and 40. Small hamburger 25, jumbo 40. Banana split was 45 cents. So we didn't make a lot of money. We weren't making a lot of money, but that wasn't as important to us as just making it, you know. But in 62, 3, 4, I don't remember having to pick up beer bottles. And I'm sure I did occasionally. Yeah. But as I kidded Freddie, the tough birds or the kids that were a little bit, maybe a little more, what should I say, a little more adventurous. If they were drinking, they'd go down to Whopper Burger.
Let's list all the ones.
Freddie Burton was one. I bought it July 1 of 62. That's kind of interesting story. My dad owned a Dairy Queen in Hot Springs. My cousin owned one in Arkadelphia and Malvern, and I was working at General Dynamics, building B-58s. My dad called me on a Monday night and said, "Tommy Jr., there's a Dairy Queen for sale in Malvern." I said, quote, "Big deal. I've got about $600 saved to all I had." The first day of July 1962, we sold 9 hamburgers and 8.5 gallons of ice cream or Dairy Queen mix. And in the summertime, we should have sold 30 gallons of mix and maybe 200 hamburgers. So the business was on the low end. We lived in Highland, and we started out 7 days a week. We struggled through that summer just because it's hot, people would come out, and then the winter was terrible. We didn't think we was going to make it. We was making payments and all these things, and it seemed like somewhere along the line, Doug Kidd, John Coburn, and Kauffman, and some of these other guys that just took up with Greta. They called her Butch for some reason. But I can tell you another story about Annette, David Moreland's wife. One night I walked out to the Dairy Queen. I heard somebody say, "Mr. Adams, Mr. Adams." I looked around. I couldn't turn around, and somebody had put her on top of the Dairy Queen.
Oh, no.
And I don't know. It was that 65 group, but nobody would admit it. And we wound up having to back a truck up there and get a ladder and get her off the top of the Dairy Queen. Yeah. But, you know, talking about the pretty girls, I remember Donna Cobb. All you guys, you know, always, ooh, Donna. And every once in a while we'd think, boy, she's pretty, but she is bow-legged. Now, I can't remember really the fast cars. Gary Newcomb, his mother, he had his mother fooled. She thought he never did anything wrong. He drove like a maniac. Remember he had a blue or black Chevrolet, kind of sloped back. That thing would flat fly, and I believe he could almost have the wheels off the ground from Edmondson up there where the McDonald's is now. I remember Dicey Jacobs. You know, I'm kind of soft-hearted. When she was selected homecoming queen, I said they had it, because she was the school spirit. She wasn't. I think she's a beautiful girl, but she wasn't she didn't get it on her looks, although she is a pretty girl. Don't get me wrong. She got it on her heart and her school spirit and all that other
Yeah,
stuff.
she was real well.
See, I tell you, I thought Don Carter and Ronnie Bearden were the best two guards that I'd ever seen play, considering your size.
Yeah.
Remember, see, that's when you had open campus. And remember, Linda Butler, Peggy,
Peggy Blakely,
and I can't think of the other girl's name.
Susan Hernsberg.
Susan Herrenberger was in that wreck. And I can't remember whether she was going out to CEF or coming back. He was working, building houses, working carpenter work, and Peggy was hurt. Linda like to die. I remember, I believe Dr. Martindale stayed in the hospital, or some of those doctors rotated, stayed with Linda, or Linda would not have made it.
I remember that.
And then of course you got to talk about or think about the disaster with Linda Bailey. I didn't know her. And then of course Fred Sawyer, and he.
But did you know him?
Yeah, Fred was like the guy that would come to the Dairy Queen, come up to the window, and I'd say, "Fred, can I help you?" I couldn't wait on him because someone wanted his attention. He was everybody's buddy. He'd say, "Just a minute, Mr. Adams," and never did say Tommy or or something. Mr. Adams, he'd go out and talk, and he'd come back and say, "Well, I want to," and somebody. It was just, he was like the social director. Maybe that would be a good word. But he was a good person, and I can remember that day. You know, and you can almost visualize that tussle and that disaster. Yeah. Myra Tittle is one of my favorites now, and as I look through this annual, I can see some of these girls really took on a burden when they chose their husband, and I think of Myra Tittle. You know, now isn't that a burden to have to bring up Larry? By the way, I want to announce for everyone that Larry does have a job, and Myra's really proud of that. There's so many of these kids. As I turn these pages, every one of them's got a story. You know, it's Robert Garrett. Would anybody ever believe he'd be a chancellor judge? That guy really looks bad here. You know, he would be one of the more improved 65 graduates.
Oh, Lord, Walmart. Where did it go?
Yeah, a good group. Good group.
Here, right where we are now in town, he started in January of 1922, but this building, then that's when he started. But then we're now in our third generation of family ownership and management, going into our 74th year. But we'll go on from there, but he started there in the 20s and built the building here, and it's called the Imp. I always said that he named it for me. You know the old saying, "You're an imp." Well, that's the old saying, but it actually stood for Independent Motion Pictures. There was no chain theaters. There's no monopoly of theaters. Everybody that wanted to go into theater business in those days was independently wanted to go into the motion picture business. And in 1949, we completely remodeled this theater. We took the old wall out, about where we're sitting, and went back 40 feet. So then, like I say, to make it different and prettier, the company had a theater in Little Rock called the Royal, and had this sign that's out here now, the Royal Theater and all, and we took it down to the, I can't think of the company up there, but anyway, we had it all rewired and redone and painted and all. It was the most beautiful thing you ever saw. Had stars and all, and they're out. But we put that in and renamed it the Royal. And man, on Saturday, this town was just full of people, and it stayed that way, and all the stores in town stayed open until 9 o'clock at night, and kids played on the courthouse square, and the people visited and sat in their cars and visited and walked around the block. And on Saturdays, it got to where you had serials, they call it. They were either in a 12-week deal or a 15-week deal. And with Benton's population, I wasn't sure, but it wasn't great population, probably 4,000 or 5,000 people. The largest day of Saturday, just Saturday, that we ever had in Benton, that I can recall, was that we had the last chapter of the famous Lone Ranger serial. And you run it before the feature, then we had a Roy Roger Western. They lasted about 60 minutes, an hour, your Westerns. And we run them a different one every Saturday. And then that night at 10:30, we'd shut down and reopen and start at 11 o'clock. We had a Judy Canova movie called Chartreuse Caboose, railroad picture deal. And when we got through that day, we were so tired. We had showed to 2,200 people that Saturday. Flashlight Freddie? Well, that was a funny thing. That was something else. They thought, I think the kids then that started, you know how it started? Well, of course, I was ushering, or I'd watch the house, you know. My dad would take tickets and stay back in the lobby, and I was always down in and around the auditorium here, and so I didn't know what really started, but somebody hollered out, "Hey, flashlight." So I guess I don't know whether they thought it'd make me mad or not, but I didn't know what it was for a long time until somebody told me. I was going down the aisle, and I would keep my flashlight in my hip pocket, and as I was walking down the aisle, it snapped the snapper on the flashlight. The light was shining up to the ceiling. I guess that's so. And somebody hollered out, "Flashlight Freddie, hey, flashlight." And I started laughing. I said, "What in the world? What's he calling?" Because I knew I just used the flashlight. Of course, I broke up an awful lot of couples in there to straighten up or go home and tell your mama. And I guess I made a lot of them mad over them cussed and discussed. But really, the flashlight deal, I thought it was funny after I found out what caused it. But that's where it got started. And you know, to this day, and I've been retired since '78, after putting in 50 years, I could be walking around the block, and here'll come somebody in a truck or car and see me and recognize me, and they'll holler out the window, "Hey, flashlight, hi!" And now to this day, there's several people from the younger age don't know my name, real name, and they'll just call me Freddie, and they actually think my name's Freddie. That's the only thing I can come up with. But they'll just holler out, you can hear me half a block, and I'll be walking around a block or something, and they'll say, "Hey, Freddie, hey, flashlight." But I thought it was funny. And they thought they was going to make, I think they thought they was going to make me mad. Well, I've had candy, and man, we used to sell pickles. Man, I've had pickles thrown at me and coming down the aisle, you know. So I quit selling pickles. And then I used to sell boxes of Red Hots. And I sold a fool of them. But some kid, and I won't tell who it was, I know him today, just took a whole handful of them Red Hots, and as I was walking down the aisle, just threw them all over the house. And I don't know, really, like I say, we're in our 74th year here in the same place, the third generation of operation, and I just praise the people of Benton that's kept us here, and Benton's always been a good theater going town.
I have fond memories of that 1965 team, Freddie. I of course, was broadcasting the ball games back in those days, and it seemed to me like that might have been the first year that we could do them live at night. That Bridges got his permit to run at night, and of course that let us do the football games at night. Now, I'm not sure about that. It might have been later on that happened, but I think back so much of the people that didn't look like football players that played on that team. And the quarterback was the #1 man. R.E. Hodges looked like anything but a football player, but he was a dadgum good quarterback. And I enjoyed seeing him play. And we had some good ball players on the team. Don Carter was a good offensive lineman. Well, he was defensive too. He played everything. Otis Barker was a good ball player. There's a whole lot of good ones. Jackie Pelton. Jackie could always catch the ball. And on that team was one of my people that I had Glenn Hoggersmith on a little league team as he was growing up, and he got hit with a damn ball, and he sat down and cried over it, and I thought, God, he'll never be a football player. And he turned out to be one of the best damn football players we had. And we beat Little Rock Central by throwing the ball. I can't remember that end that caught the ball, but anyhow, he caught the ball. And his old pass, we used it an awful lot back in those days. He caught the ball on the sideline on the west side of the field, and Little Rock Central was really after him, and he latered it off to Glenn coming by. And Glenn could run. Glenn was fast. And he scored, and we won 7-0 in the ball game. And it was a good game to win. You know, we weren't used to playing people like Central and Hall and those folks, but we won that ball game. It was a good ball game. But that's the things that I remember about football, and I remember that I would go to a few of the pep rallies just to hear them holler and get going, and they were a lively group of people. The girls were really they were doing a good job of leading the team on, and I enjoyed the football season of 1965 very, very much. But
any other players you can think of that you were talking about?
Pete Cheshire is one of the boys that comes into my mind that was playing.
Larry Cheshire?
Yeah, Larry Cheshire. And Pete was his daddy. Oh, Randall Sullivan. I used to holler at Randy all the time. I used to kid about him being so slow. And he was slow. Now, I guarantee you that. He was big-butted and he was hard to get along. But he was pretty slow. And but he was a good ball player, and he played hard. Every game. That's one thing you used to say about Randy Sullivan. He'd always play the best he could play every ball game. But the 65 team kind of was my favorite. They were good ball players, and they played hard football. Rusty Kauffman was the kicker. And, of course, he went on down to Southern State and was a great kicker in college. I saw him kick a lot of field goals, long ones. And Rusty was a good kicker. And while I never was overloaded with Winky Mays coaching, he did do a good job of coaching Benton. Benton had a good ball club there for a number of years. Well, Ronnie Bearden was a boy that could play football. He's a good defensive football player, but Ronnie, you could always depend on him playing you a good ball game at guard, and he would tackle well, and he was a good ball player. Now, Randy Northern was an end. He's the only end that I ever saw in my life that couldn't even catch the damn football. And they played him, though. You know, he tried, and he was a good ball player. But he wasn't no use throwing to him because he'd eat the ball up trying to catch it. On that team, as far as I was concerned, the leader and the best ball player on the team was R.E. Hodges. And I don't know if R.E. Hodges went on and played college ball or not. I doubt it, no bigger than he was. But he was a good football player for Benton High School. And I thought he was a great Panther. I remember seeing him work out. I used to go to about every workout they had to. And they fooled around a little bit, but not too much. Winky was pretty tough on them and kept them in line and kept them going good and straight. And I thought that overall they might have been one of the better high school football teams Benton ever had. They didn't have any great stars on the team, but they played well together, and they were a good team. And it's a lot of fun to even think about them, tell you the truth. I'm enjoying thinking about them and remembering them, how they played. Of course, going to everybody.
year out. Applied for a job in Lone Oak and applied for a job in Benton. And the good Lord blessed me and sent me to Benton.
Amen.
So I had 8 lovely years coaching football and basketball and track and teaching physical education in the junior high school. And during that period of time, teaching PE, I had an opportunity to teach and coach every boy that went through the school. And a lot of my athletes came out of the physical education classes. I would recruit from the contacts I made there. At first, when we first started, about 20-something boys out for football. And it took us about 4 years to build a program. Out of all of my coaching on the level of junior high, high school, and university, I feel like that some of the greatest rewards I had were coaching with the junior high youngsters. During that period of time, I was, I had moved up with all the good classes I'd had in the junior high. And we had, Bob Nix and Tim Wright, et cetera, to mention a few that came up with me as 10th graders, and then I had caught up with Ronnie Ringgold and Ronnie Mack Smith and Norman Tubb and some of the other fine players that I'd had in junior high that were already up here. But I remember your class. It was to me, I saw you as sophomores, and I saw you into your semester, your junior year, and I felt you had an exceptional class. You had good athletes out on the field that I worked with, and the program was strong at that time in athletics, and your class helped us, your junior year, have a 10-1 football season. You remember we had the game with Little Rock Hall, and we lost here with a field goal in the last 16 seconds of the ball game, and 9-7. And that was the only game we lost that year. And the senior class was strong with Nix and Wright and some other outstanding players, but your class blended in so well with that group as juniors. And you went on then, your class went on, when I left here in January, I kept up with your class. And R.E. Hodges and Glenn Hocker Smith and you and Otis Barker and Maddox and, some fine football players and students and good class leaders. And when I went to Fayetteville, I kept up with you, and I know that y'all had a fine football season your senior year. I know you made all-district nose man. Otis Barker, I think, made all-district. Glenn Hocker Smith, I believe, made honorable mention all-state. I believe Don Carter made all-state. And so I want you to know I kept up with your class because you meant a lot to me. And I have one regret, that I didn't get to coach y'all your senior year. And I know one class project that y'all had, and I need to mention that. Your class initiated the, quote, coat of arms seal. And I don't have the names of those people that prepared that, but it was to be used on diplomas, invitations, and formal documents of BHS. And it stands for knowledge, education, athletics, science, and math. And that's a heck of a mark to leave, I'll tell you for sure. That seal itself, it means a whole lot, I'm sure. Thank you a lot, Ronnie.
Thank you. Appreciate it.